Hi, thanks very much for putting our paper on the agenda of the conference. This is a paper on identifying of non-answers using machine learning. And this is a joint work with two of my colleagues, Andreas Barth and Fabian Wolbeking, both at Goethe University Frankfurt. So let me start with this two examples here. So the first one is for Mark Zuckerberg after the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and then he went to the U.S. Senate for a hearing. And during this hearing, he's used these kind of answers a lot. Like, Senator, I can certainly have my team get back to you on any specifics here that I don't know sitting here today. Or another example would be of Elon Musk in Tesla's earnings call on May 2018, which he said to answer the question about capital requirement. He said that, excuse me, next, boring bonehead questions are not cool, next. And this is a very famous example of the cases where people don't want to answer faithfully to the requested information in their questions. So as you see in the anatomy here, when there's a question, people could answer and could not answer. And the reason for non-answer is maybe the intention to withhold the information or the inability to provide the information. And it comes with several symptoms. So it's, for example, it could be kind of a rejection of won't answer that, or you could beat around the bush and not answer. Or you can say, postpone the answer, say, I will get back to you, for example. Okay. So what we know is that in economics, the information asymmetry is a key friction, and yeah, this Q&A is a direct way of reducing this asymmetry. And what we want to do in this paper is to teach the skill of understanding the non-answers to the computer. And then at the end, we show an economic relevance of our method. So, in the first part of the paper, I'm showing you the way that we develop a measure for the non-answer, and in the second part, we talk about the economic relevance. Especially, we show that the model what is the impact of non-answers on the after the earnings calls, for example, and we use a large validation set for mapping of non-answers of the company's earning calls to the financial data. And just an overview of the results. So we found 1,364 trigrams that indicate non-answers. And what we show is that these trigrams are not context specific. So it's not about earnings calls, and you could apply it to other contexts. So for example, the politicians' interviews or sport interviews. And you can see here the word cloud of these trigrams. So for example, the most prominent one was back to you. It could be something like, it's early to tell you, and it's not on top of my head right now, or it's too early to comment on this. To be honest is also nice here, and yeah, and so on. And if you're interested in applying this measure on your own research, we have a project website, econlinguistics.org, and there we provide some codes in order to replicate these results and download the dictionary and so on. And then, so this is the first part about the creation of this dictionary, and the second part of the economic relevance. We show that within earnings call, our non-answer metric is higher for management's responses to analysts with a low target price, so the pessimist analysts, and also the follow-up questions by the same analysts, because follow-up questions are usually more difficult, so they ask about the specific things. And so if the question is more negative, or if it asks for more forward-looking information. And then we also show the market reaction to this non-answers in the earning calls. And we show that there is a lower stop returns after earning calls with high non-answers, and we show that there is a higher uncertainty after the calls. We show it with the option data, using specifically with option implied volatility. For the related literature, so we provide a new word list in the finance and accounting literature to the currently available word list, and we also contribute to the literature on vague language, and also the management withholding of information earning calls. So the most similar to ours is Go et al. That we use their measure in order to train our machine learning model, and also Barth et al. That they also found a kind of a measure for non-answers. But the earliest literature that we could find is about Hollander et al. In JAR, that they show that they manually classified some non-answers, and they show a market reaction to that. So let's talk about the method and the training set. So the method that we have is called multinomial inverse regression, that was developed by Teddy 2013 in Journal of American Statistic Associations. So what MNIR does, we have lots of details and background on the paper, but just an overview of it. If you consider a normal regression, so assume you can measure y on for your training set, and then the y is non-answer. If you could classify this, and then you do a regression on all the words available on your corpus. So you have a corpus of all the earning calls in your training set, and for each word, you see a beta that you can see if it is a statistically significant beta positive, so it is positively affecting or associating with this variable that you want. And so we could do that, but the problem is that so when you're talking about textual analysis, the dimensions is really high. So there are millions of words you could put into X. So in order to reduce the dimensions, you could apply a normal lasso, but lasso has also inefficiencies and biases. So that's why we use this Teddy paper that he introduced the gamma lasso scheme, and it is designed for textual analysis purpose. And the code is also available on his webpage. So you could easily do this kind of things for textual analysis purpose. Okay, now what is this Y that we use here? So first, let me talk about the data that we have. So we use earning conference call because we have a very nice data set of quarterly earning calls. And then we could map to the financial results after the earning calls easily. So we get the Q&As data from the earnings calls of S&P 500 companies from the range of 2002 to 2019. And and we have 650 companies in total, but we use only 42 for the training, and I will tell you in specifically why it is the case. So we have more than 1 million of Q&As at the end, and what is interesting to know is that we use only roughly 7% of the data for the training purpose, and we already get a very powerful model. So it's usually, so in machine learning, usually people use 80% in order to train and use only 20% for the test. But you see how powerful is our method here that could capture what we want with only 7% of the training data. So what is the Y that we use for the training? So we use first the rejection, and second as blathering as two symptoms. And what you see is the rejection measure is what we get from Go et al. They have a paper that's just published in a JAR. So they have many regular expressions that if that they provide a measure of 0, 1 if an answer has been done or has been rejected. And what blathering measure does is a measure only developed for the financial companies, and the assumptions behind this measure is that all the discussions in a Q&A of financial firm earnings call is to be about financial work. So if you want to talk about future products, or if you talk about mergers, acquisitions, if you talk about whatever strategic point, you need to use some financial words. And that's why we, for the training purpose, we only use the financial firms data, and we develop this blathering metrics there by 1 minus the share of financial words that are used for the answers. And so when we do the MNIR approach, just assume as a similar to a regression, we find some positive loads and some negative loads. So for those that are negative, so based on the blathering measure, they are mostly very finance related words, but we don't need them. So we just don't focus on them anymore. But for the positive words, they are signaling exactly what we are after. And so as you see here, there are words that people use in English language for non-answers. And in order to test that, to test if it is relevant, we define two measures. So we define one non-answer. So we basically count the number of tokens that use in our glossary divided by total words in the text. And we also use a non-answer weighted by the weights that we also publish for each of these tokens. And then we just, in order to show if there's a heterogeneity in other contexts. So what you see here in the left is the heterogeneity of the model of the metric for earnings calls. So this is the out of sample of earning calls. We also use lots of sport interviews, and you see also there is a heterogeneity here. We also use presidential interviews for all the US presidents. And I think, yeah, they have also a nice figure here. For all the presidents, you see that there is a heterogeneity of non-answers among the presidents. And for example, the highest point that we see here belongs to President Clinton, and it was exactly after his scandal, his sexual scandal that came out. And the second one is, I guess, for President Obama, and it was after the Benghazi attack. There was like an interview about this. I think the third one is for President Trump, but I don't remember exactly what was the context there. But let's see economic relevance, if the measure had some economic relevance. So what we do, first we look within an earning call, and we know that within an earning call, we know, for example, the question orders, the sentiment, have the sentiment of the questions, and we know who asked the questions. And also with the literature, we know that, for example, managers avoid unfavorable or pessimistic analysts. We also know that follow-up questions are more critical. And so a plausibility check would be that to check which analysts receive non-answers and which question receive non-answers. So the first one, which analysts receive non-answers, what we see is that so the lower the price target you have, the higher non-answers you get. So pessimistic analysts will receive more non-answers during the calls, in line with the literature. Also, if you want to see which questions receive non-answers, we see here that follow-up questions get more non-answers. Negativity, so negativity of questions increase the non-answers, and the forward sentiment of the questions also, if they ask about forward looking information, they receive more non-answers. So we have it for normal non-answers and our weighted non-answers. Throughout the paper, we see mostly that this non-answer 5, which is the weighted one, has more prediction ability, and it shows that our weightings are kind of meaningful. Yep. And at the end, I just also want to talk about the market reaction. So we know that investors participate in the Q&A sessions of the earnings call in order to reduce uncertainty about their future performance. And so theoretical asset pricing models also predict that a larger risk premium translates to lower stock returns. Yeah, so the higher uncertainty translates to larger risk premium. And we also know that not conveying the information in the earnings calls leads to negative stock market reactions. So we could expect that also if there is more non-answers, there should be negative market reaction. So we test it in a regression setting. We have cumulative abnormal returns and regress it on the non-answer measures. We control for other language measures, so like the negativity of the answers, for the uncertainty of answers, how many numbers are there in the answers, and the complexity of the answers. We also control for earnings surprise and book to market, Tobin skew, and total assets. And we control for quarter and company and management fixed effects. So as you see here, so we regress it on form of French 3-factor abnormal returns and also 5-factor. And as you see here, so like the most conservative estimation is also with the CEO fixed effect. So if we assume that there is some style in non-answers, we also capture that, and we see that there is a negative reaction to non-answers after the call. Furthermore, we test the implied volatility, and so we define 2 measures of implied volatilities, and we use the option metrics data, and we use at the money options with 91 days of maturity. So we get the implied volatility, and we construct these 2 implied volatility chains, so kind of abnormal implied volatility increase, and we do it under similar regressions. So what you see here for both ways of our definitions and for both of the non-answer measures, you see that the higher non-answers results in more uncertainty. So in other words, investors seek insurance when they see non-answers. So they seek insurance for more volatility in the future. And here we also want to check if a random glossary could produce such a result. So if you see this dash line as the T statistics that we found, for example, for table 4, column 2, we draw 1,000 times from our training sets this amount of 1,364 trigrams randomly, and put it in the same regression. And as this is the T statistic of the regressions that we found. And what you see is like it's extremely unlikely to just get what we have by chance. So for conclusion, so we developed a glossary using a multinomial inverse regression that could classify non-answers, and some of the trigrams like back to you, have to wait, that's a great questions, and so on are among these trigrams. And our dictionary does not contain an industry-specific vocabulary, and it is applicable to other Q&A contexts, as for example, politicians' interview or Senate hearings or sport events, and so on. We show that our glossary has economic relevance, and in a specific cases, managers try to avoid to answer pessimistic analysis and offer more critical questions. And market reaction to non-answer is a negative abnormal return after the call and higher uncertainty measured by implied volatility. Thank you very much for your attention.